When I'm going through a trial, when I'm going through a tribulation, when the waves are crashing, I'm going to look for Jesus. I know he lives in me. I know he dwells in me, but I'm going to look to Jesus in me. I'm not going to try to grab for this or grab for that, but I'm going to grab hold of the truth that Christ is in me and he is all that we need for life and for godliness. Here's what James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4 says. He says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." Count it all joy. That's not an emotional reaction. Count is an arithmetic term. I'm going to count that by faith. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. But I trust God. Doesn't feel good. It hurts deeply. It's painful. But I can count it all joy by the grace of God, because I know that the testing of my faith will produce patience. And patience, let it have its perfect work so that I'll be complete and perfect, lacking nothing. So God can use trials and tribulations and adversity and affliction to grow us up, to mature us. And that's the goal. The goal is that we mature as believers in Jesus Christ so that we can walk in the dominion and the authority and the calling that God has called us to. We got to mature. You don't give your 8-year-old the keys to your car. There's a maturing process, so that when they turn 16 and go through lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of training, now you give them the keys. So how can we, Paul says, we just read in Romans 5, verse 3, that we're to glory in tribulations. And once again, tribulations, that's pressure, it's oppression, it's anguish, it's adversity, it's affliction, crushing, squeezing, squashing, distress. It's the same word that's used of crushing grapes or olives in a press. And that word glory in tribulations, as we said in Romans 5:3, we can glory in tribulations. That means to boast or to exult. Well, how can we do that? Well, there's a few truths in that passage that I want to point out that Paul mentions that can help us pray through and glory in tribulations. And the first one is this. He says, therefore, now he just got done talking he's talking to the believers, the church in Rome, and he was talking about how we've all have sinned, all have fallen short of the glory of God. No one can obtain righteousness. And he was talking about Abraham, that Abraham received righteousness. He believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. It wasn't based on works or performance. Nobody can achieve righteousness by the law. So Paul is explaining all this, and then he says, therefore, just like Abraham, as it was imputed to him because of his faith and his trust in God, that it's imputed to us as well as believers. Therefore, we have peace with God through the Lord Jesus Christ. My first point is this: when you're going through trials, when you're going through tribulations, remember this: you have peace with God through Jesus Christ. He's our peace. I don't look to my circumstance. I don't look to my situation. I don't look to anything else but Jesus. And I'm reminded that I have peace with God. That means that God's not mad at me. God's not judging me. God's not punishing me for my sin, because that would contradict the gospel. Jesus was the propitiation for wrath and anger and judgment for sin on that cross. And now I can come boldly to his throne. 10 years ago, when my first wife, Natalie, had a stroke and passed away, we've been married for 14 years, 3 kids, totally unexpected. Pastors at a church, had a business, and out of the blue, she had a stroke. And I remember the doctor who did her brain surgery said it doesn't make sense. She's 42 years old. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She's at the bottom of the bell curve. This doesn't make sense. And I realized, you know what? We're not supposed to make sense of things. It didn't make sense. And when I try to make sense of it, that's actually senseless, because the goal isn't try to make sense of it. The goal is to trust God no matter what I'm going through. God is faithful. But I did know this, that God was at peace with me. That God wasn't angry at me. God wasn't disappointed. God wasn't stiff-arming me. See, if I had believed that God was stiff-arming me and that this was his way of punishing me, then my heart would be less apt to run to him to where I can find comfort and grace in time of a need. I remember I was having a session, it was a few weeks after she had passed, and I was talking to a counselor, and he just said, hey, for 3 hours, talked to me and just said, Kevin, one of the questions he asked me, are you mad at God? And by the grace of God, I said, no. So I'm going to be mad at anybody. I'd be mad at the devil. I'd be mad at sin. We live in a fallen, I just said, in a fallen world, if I was going to be mad at anybody, but how could I be mad at God? Who rescued me, who delivered me, who set me free, who has walked with me through so many things up to this point. And he's carried me through so much. He's delivered me through so much. He's been good to me. I didn't blame God for this. He's a good father. It didn't make sense. I didn't understand it. But sometimes, see, God's always working from an eternal perspective. Y'all remember those Polaroid cameras? You take it, and I know they made a comeback too, along with the Crocs. Anyways, but those Polaroid cameras, like a little snapshot, and it's like an instant shot, right? And you get a snapshot. And so a lot of times that's what we're doing. We got a snapshot. We're here today, gone tomorrow. God is always working from an eternal perspective. So what is God working through that trial and that tribulation? I remember a friend of mine, an elder, said to me, he said, Kevin, do you feel like that you had to go through that? Is there any other way that God could have brought you to that place of the revelation and the understanding of his sufficiency and his grace and his strength in a time of need? Is there any other way? I said, no. Because if there was, God would have brought me that other way. This was the path that was destined for me to walk through. I wrestled with that. It took me from praying and seeking the Lord to get that revelation that God is so sovereign. His plan is way beyond. I didn't understand it, but at the end of that counseling session, it was just simple. 2 words. Trust me.